Now today, I'm going to show you how we can use this camera to make stunning infrared photographs with only 3 items really needed. We need the camera, we need an infrared filter, and we need this magnet right here. It's a rare earth magnet. The Sony DSC-F717 Cybershot. It's got the night shot mode, but guess what? Now it's an infrared. That lens is absolutely amazing. It's all optical zoom. Look at that 10x zoom on there. And the lens swivels on the camera body. You can zoom it this way, or you can zoom it or focus it by hand. It has different white balances, has exposure locks, has all of these great features, and it's got full manual. You could go from automatic mode into a program priority mode, shutter speed, aperture select, full manual, and you've got all these great features inside the setup that you can change the ISO, you can change just about every aspect of an image that you want. This battery life alone on this thing, each battery could easily give you 3 hours of continuous use. But the really big thing that made this camera popular was the Sony Night Shot mode. The Sony Night Shot mode allowed you to take this camera at night and make amazing infrared photographs in the dark. Now, from the very beginning, photographers wanted to know, how can I use this incredible night shot mode in the daytime? The reason that Sony disabled that night shot mode to be used during the day is because whenever its predecessor came out, it spread through the news like wildfire that this was an X-ray camera and it could take photographs through clothing and show people naked and nude. Well, I've tried a couple times to take photographs of my own shirt, to see if I could see the tattoos underneath, and to no luck, it just didn't work. So I imagine that there might be some fabrics out there that are more susceptible to that, but I haven't personally found them yet. Anyway, Sony was so concerned about people suing the company, people who didn't necessarily want to be shown nude at the beach, that they disabled the mode. How they did that is whenever you put it in night shot mode, first of all, you can only use night shot mode if the camera is in full automatic and it sets the aperture wide open and it sets the shutter speed pretty low at 1/60th of a second or so. So the only thing that you get in the daytime, look at that, it's a bright greenish white screen. So what photographers try to do was they would take a neutral density filter, and a neutral density filter is basically, it's like sunglasses for your lens. It makes everything really nice and dark. So they would take a neutral density filter, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of them, whatever worked, and then they would take an infrared filter and put the infrared filter on top of the neutral density filters. So by trying to make the light as dark as possible, I'm not even really going to go through that, because the problem is the shots that you got are green and black. Turns out that there's a much easier and better way. Alright, so let's talk about how this works. On every camera, whether it's a point and shoot or a single lens reflex, as long as it's a digital camera, you've got the lens, and somewhere in the body you've got the sensor itself, which is recording the image. Now on every camera, in between the lens and that image sensor is something called an IR cut glass. Now what that glass does is it prevents any ultraviolet, and it prevents all the infrared light from making its way onto the camera sensor. Now, just about every other camera in the world, that glass is fixed in there. It's either glued or bolted, but it's almost impossible to remove. But on the Sony cameras, whenever you put it in the night shot mode and you hear that click, what that click is, it's a electromagnetic mechanism inside that's moving that IR cut glass out of the way of the optical path, allowing the camera to become a full spectrum camera. At nighttime, the reason that you're able to get those shots is not just the infrared light coming through, but it's assisted by two infrared flashlights that are built into the lens. So they project out infrared light, and you're able to get really great infrared shots at night. But like I said, unfortunately, Sony disabled that to be used during the day. So how do we override that? Okay, so the way we're going to turn this camera into a fully functional infrared, full spectrum, ultraviolet, whatever you choose to use it for, camera. You need the camera, you're going to turn it over. You're going to find your tripod mount. Right on the left-hand side of the tripod mount at the corner of that plastic, you're going to take that magnet that I talked about. It's a 3/8 inch neodymium. It's a rare earth magnet. It's approximately about an inch long, 3/8 inch in diameter. One end of that magnet is going to trigger the electromagnetic mechanism to remove the IR cut glass out of the optical path. The other end of the magnet, if you flip it around, will return it back to its original position. There. Now, you'll know whenever you got it right, because everything's going to look a funky color. It's either going to be red or orange or purple in color. That's okay. You want it to look that way. That means that all of the spectrum's coming through, ultraviolet, visible, infrared, everything. So the next thing you do is you take your filter of choice. This is an infrared filter. It's an IR 850. To us, it looked black, but not to the camera. It's only allowing light above 850 to go into the camera, into the optical path, and be recorded on the sensor. Now, whenever I put that filter on there, everything looks, again, it's either going to look red or orange or purple, and that's okay. What we need to do every time that you want to shoot infrared, or full spectrum or ultraviolet, doesn't matter, take your pick, you're going to utilize this function right here, the white balance. The rectangular button, you're going to turn until you find the custom white balance icon. And the best way to shoot infrared, I found, is just use some green grass or some leaves from the tree. You point the lens at the grass or the leaves in the tree while pressing and holding down the circular button next to the white balance button. You're going to press and hold it just for a couple seconds until you hear it click. So if I aim this at the grass, there we go. Now all of a sudden the weird colors are gone, and now you have a beautiful infrared image coming into your camera. That's how easy it is. Now, if you want to return this camera back to what they call normal, that's easy. You take off your IR filter, all right? And second, just you don't even need the magnet at this point anymore. Just turn the camera off. Wait a few seconds, turn it back on, and you're going to say, wait a minute, my colors are still funky. Okay, remember that you're still going to be in that custom white balance setting. So just really quickly, push it again, and that's it. Push your white balance to whatever you choose, whether it's auto white balance or daylight, shade, whatever you choose, and all of a sudden your camera is back to normal. So you take a few shots of the family at the beach because maybe they want some normal looking photographs, and you're like, wow, now it's my turn to play again. Well, again, all you need to do, and it doesn't have to be magnet first, infrared filter second, it's whatever one you choose. Remember, you put on the IR filter, you take your magnet, oh, there you go. You got full spectrum because the IR cut glass is removed out of the path, and you're going to change your white balance back to that custom setting. Now, one of the best tips that I can give you about that setting that custom white balance is you're going to have to set it on every infrared shoot that you choose to do, because lighting changes by the hour easily. Some situations are going to have more infrared, less infrared, and all changes the color temperature. Well, right now, since it's only been a few seconds, we're still good to go. If I had to set it again, I could aim it at some grass. Remember the round button right there? Do my white balance. See? That's that easy. All right, now there's one important aspect that I need to talk about. It is the fact that light, different types of light, focuses at different locations. One of the reasons that our human eye only sees in that small range of visible light is because that's already enough of a struggle between red and violet, that the red, the yellow, the green, the blue, the violet, each one focusing at a somewhat different length. It's tough enough on our eyes. But infrared is going to focus way out here. Ultraviolet is going to focus way back here. Whenever we remove the IR cut glass out of the path, it's really, really hard for this camera to decide what to focus on. Now, even if all we have on here is the IR 850, okay, and we're only going to use the 850 filter on the camera, there's still going to be a slight bit of a struggle for the camera to focus at the point that the visible light would have focused on that sensor. So a lot of people have noticed that whenever the camera is wide open, whenever you can see as much as the image as you possibly can, sometimes you may find that you will lose the ability to focus at infinity. Well, there's a quick and easy way around that. You ready? All we got to do is we see that we're zoomed so it's wide as possible. Just back it in a little bit, that's all. Just a tiny bit, look. Use a little bit of that telly, not much. If you put the mark so it's like closer to the right-hand side of the battery indicator, you've zoomed in just a little bit, and I have found that as soon as you do that, all of a sudden, infinity returns. And like I said, that's not a problem with the camera. It's just a difference between how light focuses and at what location each light focuses. All right? So as soon as we have that set, then all of a sudden we can find out that we can get clear and sharp photos. Infrared's always going to be a little bit fuzzy. Sometimes it's going to have a little bit of a glow to it. But again, don't forget the properties of infrared. Infrared is really light that's reflected off heat sources and especially living sources. So it's a different property than just the normal visible reflected light that you see. So the images are always going to look a little bit dreamy. And that's one of the attraction that people have to them. Now, when I showed you the IR 850 filter, that's going to give you the classic, more of a black and white infrared look. Well, a lot of us are excited by the false color infrared. And what it is the infrared photos that still have a tint of visible light. The way that you achieve that is you use one of these red filters. And you're going to put that on your camera. Make sure that you're on the green dot. You don't want to be in night shot mode, remember that. You're going to take your magnet. You're going to touch it to the ideal spot on the back. And then you're going to see your image is looking mighty orange. Now, you're still going to set a custom white balance with the red filter. But even whenever you put the white balance in custom white balance mode and you set your white balance, that red is so overwhelming to the sensor because it's right on the cusp. It's a little bit of visible light and it's infrared all at the same time. It really is never going to set your color balance to look anything normal to you. It's still always going to look orange or yellow or a little bit red. And that's okay, because that one we can adjust a little bit later in Photoshop or a different editing program. you can use a blue filter. And with a special blue filter, what that's going to do, the blue filter lets ultraviolet light come into the camera. So it's blocking most of the visible light spectrum, but it's allowing ultraviolet light to come through. One of the neat things that I've liked to do on this camera is I combine the red filter with the blue filter. There's different ways to get cool images with this camera. Another one of the ones that I've really enjoyed experimenting with, believe it or not, is taking two polarizer filters. Like this one here, it's kind of a hack job, but I glued it together and taped it together so that only one element moves. And you can kind of see, even in this camera lens, see how it blacks out? Just by turning it. And believe it or not, it's still letting in infrared light. Alright, but our eyes can't see it. And if we keep turning it, all of a sudden we bring it back to where everything's visible. Now I spent quite a lot of time lining these two polarizer filters together so it has that effect, and that's why I glued them together. I'm only going to use it for this camera. But why would I want to use this instead of the IR850 or the red filter or the blue? Again, whenever we go back to the false color infrared photos, the ones that are partial infrared, partial color, this is actually a great tool to get just those results. See? I found if you black it out, then the shots are going to look like the IR850. And then if you just turn it back a little bit more, the more that you turn it, the more visible light you allow to come through, and you still got that blend of infrared. Pretty cool, neat stuff to play with. But again, that's something that you just have to experiment with on your own. Now, as far as memory storage goes on these cameras, they came out of the box with, something like 8 meg or 16 meg or 32 megabyte cards. I mean, rather silly, but it's just a trick if you have a Sony. For example, this here, it's an SanDisk Ultra 2 Memory Stick Pro Duo adapter. And what I have in here is then I've got the SanDisk Ultra 2 4 gigabyte Magic Gate Memory Stick Pro Duo card. I know that's a mouthful, huh? But it turns out that you can use larger size cards in this camera with that adapter. Even though I've taken all those photographs on it that are still on my card that I have to clear off of it, I still have over 1,600 photographs that I can take. And that's at the highest quality settings. So I think we're good to go for quite a while. Just a helpful hint to be able to use that adapter in the Sony cameras. Wait a minute, I almost forgot one thing that I could see being a question later. Hey, can you take infrared movies with this camera too? Absolutely you can. Set everything up like I told you, green dot, except this time you're going to put it in movie mode. All right? You're going to put on your infrared filter, you're going to touch the magnet to the appropriate place, set your custom white balance, and there you go. Shooting infrared video right there on your Sony. One of the most important steps that's going to save you tons and tons of time in post-processing the images is to put your white balance on custom white balance, and then to make a custom white balance yourself. And to do that, the easiest way possible for infrared is to just aim it at a nice patch of grass, sunny patch of grass, or some sunny leaves, you know, right up here, and just push and hold that button. And you'll instantly see the magic happen right there inside of your camera. If you're using a red filter or blue filter, it's not going to look perfect, and then you're going to have to resort to some serious post-processing work, but that's okay. I mean, it gives you more to be creative with, and you'll get some amazing false color images. But again, this is just a review to set your camera back to normal, and that's one of the reasons that I love this camera, is because I can do infrared shots on a trip without having to take two cameras. It's all in one. I just take off the IR filter and I turn the camera off, wait a few seconds, turn it back on, and I always remember that even though the colors are going to look funky, it's because it's still set on custom white balance, and I just need to hit that button a couple more times, put it back on auto white balance, and everything is good to go. You can't get more convenient than that. And that's one of the reasons that this is such a popular camera for people who want to explore those creative aspects of what we call invisible photography, whether it's ultraviolet or infrared.